Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and as I always say, it's good to be a journalist with a growing YouTube channel. Last night I went to an advanced screening of The Flash, and I'm here to talk to you about it. This will be a spoiler review, so be warned. So, as the movie starts, Barry finds himself being called to help Batman and I guess Alfred remotely deal with a situation at a downtown hospital that is falling apart for some reason, a gas leak, something. It's not really clear what, but Superman is otherwise occupied, Wonder Woman is otherwise occupied, so and as is Batman. So Flash has to go and take care of it. And the reason I say help Batman is because Batman and Alfred are the ones who call him, to do it. So it was pretty cool because you got to see Barry show off his powers, the Flash show off his powers of, being able to move like in slow mo while things are happening around him that you and I would perceive at regular speed. They happen in extreme slow mo for him, and it helps him be able to save people in creative ways, let's say. So it was a really fun scene of watching him solve this puzzle of, okay, how am I going to stop all of these simultaneous horrible things from happening and hurting people? Meanwhile, Batman was, I guess, chasing the people who had caused the problem because I guess they broke into the hospital lab and stole a deadly virus and somehow caused something that made the hospital start to come apart. But he's chasing them through the city on the bat cycle, and that was super wild as well. And after Barry saves everyone, just as Batman has the bad guys basically in custody, it happens that he has them in custody while hanging from a bridge. And the deadly virus is about to fall out of the briefcase that's handcuffed to the bad guy and go into the river. And just before he drops the guy and loses his grip on him, or the guy loses his grip on Batman, frickin' Wonder Woman shows up and lassos them both to the top of the bridge, which was so awesome. I thought for sure we had seen the last of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman in Shazam 2 in a really crappy cameo in Shazam 2. And I was super psyched to see her show up in the Flash movie. Wasn't expecting it at all. And she was awesome as usual. And the scene was very funny because Bruce gets the lasso of truth wrapped around him, just like Aquaman did before in Justice League. And he starts blurting out stuff, and then Flash touches it and he blurts out funny stuff. And it was really cool. It was great to see her. So that was all very cool. And then we see Barry preparing to show up at his father's appeal for the crime he was convicted of that he didn't do, which was killing Barry's mother. And he gets so frustrated with it because it looks like his father's not going to be able to get out. They had hoped some footage of the father at the market was going to show he was there at the time and couldn't have killed the mother, but the footage didn't show what they hoped it would show. And so he gets really frustrated and he runs really, really fast and kind of freaks out and figures out that he can go back in time, although I thought he already did that in Justice League. But anyway, he figures out that he can do it. And he hatches a scheme to go back and save his mother. As we know, this is Flashpoint, the Flashpoint storyline. And it played out on the Flash TV show in a different way, actually. So he talks to Batman about it to Bruce, and Bruce says, don't do this. You're going to screw things up. And he keeps making the case that he can do it. And Bruce tries to explain to him that it's the pain that we've gone through that make us who we are. And sure, I am Batman and everything, but I'm alone, and there are just sacrifices that come with it. And Barry says, well, do you want, let's hang out, we can hang out. And Bruce says, not this time, kid, maybe some other time. And so he leaves. And Barry then ends up meeting up with Iris, who shows up to see him because she's an old friend of his. And in talking with her, he gets a brain spark that he can just go back in time, and without even being seen by anyone or interacting with anyone, he can make it so that his mother doesn't die by making sure that she has a can of tomatoes in her shopping cart at the supermarket so that later she doesn't ask the father to go get more tomatoes and he's there. And so the killer doesn't go in the house because they see the car in the driveway or whatever, and she lives. And so he does that. And As he's on his way back to the present, he gets shoved out of the time bubble into the past, I guess a different point in the past, but the future from when he saved his mother, to where he is actually in that timeline 18 years old versus 23 or 24 or whatever he is in the present, and encounters his younger self on the day that the lightning struck him to get his powers. There's a lot of funny stuff there because he doesn't know what's happening in the lives of his parents at that point. So he's just kind of, or what his self in that time is actually doing. So he has to buffalo his way through it, and it's funny. And then when his present day self shows up, he's a wicked goofball, like worse of a goofball than Barry was in Justice League. And there's a lot of funny stuff. But then he tells other Barry, look, you have to go and get struck by lightning and get your powers. And that way it won't screw up the timeline where I never get my powers, so I could never come back and never save my mother in a big time loop. So he takes Barry to get struck by lightning. But what happens is they both end up getting struck by lightning. And this time it takes original Barry's powers away, but gives them to the other Barry, the younger Barry, which is completely hilarious. There's a lot of funny stuff that happens from that. But then they realize that it's the day that Zod shows up looking for what they assume is Kal-El, and that if they don't stop him, he's going to destroy the world. And original Barry soon figures out that there is no Superman on this planet, there is no Aquaman on this planet, on Earth in this time, and there is no Wonder Woman, but there is a Batman. So they go to see Bruce Wayne in the hopes that he can help them figure out where Superman is, because they're assuming he still came to Earth and all that stuff, and they got to find him. So they arrive at Wayne Manor to find Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. And they explain to him, the whole I went back in time and there's Superman. And Barry doesn't really understand why it's different. And Bruce Wayne explains that time is not actually linear. So that when you go back to the past and change something, it not only changes the future, but it's also retroactive and changes the past.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Which I don't know if I buy that. I don't know what the current science is on time travel, but I don't know. That's a new one on me. But anyway, that's what supposedly explains how Bruce Wayne is now Michael Keaton. I'll take it. So they use the Bat computer and they figure out that the Kryptonian is being held at a specific black site in Siberia or whatever. So they go to rescue who they think is Kal-El, but it turns out to be Kara Zor-El. And she, of course, is Supergirl. So there's some really cool action stuff there, with the Batwing and Supergirl and fighting the Russians or whatever, and all of that stuff. But then original Barry decides he has to be hit by lightning again to get his powers back so that the two Flashes and Batman and Supergirl can stop Zod. So it's a really intense scene where he gets zapped by lightning, and then it doesn't work and the system is fried. So Supergirl carries him up into the storm where he gets zapped by lightning and he gets his powers back. And they end up fighting Zod and the Kryptonians. But they figure out that no matter what they do, Zod wins. It's a unchangeable point in the timeline that they can't, no matter how many times they go back and try to keep Supergirl from being killed and Batman from being killed. Which, by the way, when he dies, Flash says, I don't think I can save you this time, or I'm not going to be able to save you this time, am I? And Michael Keaton Batman says, not this time, kid. Maybe another time. Which was really cool because it was a throwback to the other line from before with Batflek. But they figure out they can't change it and that world has to die, meaning that Barry has to go back again to stop his other self from putting the tomatoes in the cart and saving his mother, because that's what created this alternate world to begin with, and there's no way they can fix it. They have to just set everything back, which New Barry doesn't want to do because he's lived his whole life with his mother and he doesn't want to lose her, but that timeline has to be wiped out. So he wouldn't really lose her, I guess, because that timeline would be wiped out unless it would not be wiped out, which I don't know how that would all work.
Like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
But anyway, that's what he ends up doing. And there's a very moving scene between him and his mother where she thinks he's a stranger, but really, it's him. And he takes the can out of the cart. But in the process, makes it so that his father can be seen on the video footage. And then at a hearing at the end of the movie, his father is released from prison. He gets the charges or the conviction overturned. And at that moment, I'm going, yeah, but that's going to change stuff too. If he gets out of prison when he wasn't supposed to, that's going to create changes in the timeline too. And lo and behold, after the hearing, when Bruce Wayne shows up to congratulate Barry or talk to Barry about what just happened and how everything went so well, it turns out that Bruce Wayne is now George Clooney. So, yeah. So there are going to be some changes, I guess, which we knew because that's what James Gunn has been saying, that this movie's going to reset everything, reset things. So the fact that that's changed isn't, a surprise. It makes sense not only the plot, but what we've been told about the DC universe. My question is George Clooney really back as Batman? Like, A, would he want to do it? And B, his Batman was not very popular. So I don't know what's going on there. I have a question about that. Like, what are they doing? I thought it was going to be Michael Keaton, and I think that would have made sense. Like, because Michael Keaton's obviously down to clown, right? And was a very popular Batman. So why they didn't do that, I don't know. Anyway, that's pretty much where the movie ends. And then there's a post-credit scene where we find out that Aquaman does still exist in the timeline, just like he did before. And Barry, I guess, goes out drinking with him, and Aquaman gets very drunk, and they kind of just leave it there. So I don't know what that's about. But that's a very basic breakdown of the plot of the film. There's a lot of stuff that I left out, the funny moments and some of the more poignant moments, that occur during the story are stuff you're going to have to see the movie to see, including some crazy Easter eggs / cameos that are super cool. But all added up, it makes for a really great story and a really well-made movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Of particular note is the performance of Ezra Miller. I did not like their Flash in the Justice League. Did not like the Justice League Flash. I did not like the Justice League Barry Allen, the way they've written the character. He's very goofy, which, I suppose Wally West was in the comics to an extent, and he is a young hero in Justice League, but I just didn't like that he was so goofy and odd because Barry Allen never was that. But, Ezra Miller does a great job in the part and it works for their version of the character. And when I say that they did a great job, I mean that on two fronts. One, the character has obviously grown. Barry Allen has obviously grown since the events of Justice League. He's a much better hero, a much better strategist, a more together person. Even though he's not completely together, he's still kind of a mess. But Barry Allen always was to a certain extent. He was always late, which was the funny thing about the character. But he's very put together. He's very bright. He's able to be on mission and work within a framework and, does have some social graces. Whereas the younger Barry, who grew up with his mother and never went through the stuff the original Barry did, is very undisciplined and very goofy, like worse than Barry was in Justice League. And, there's some story stuff about that. But my point is, Ezra Miller played the two different versions very, very well. There was never a moment where I did not believe they were two different people. The difference is stark. The difference is palpable. The difference is very noticeable. And of course, some of that's the writing and some of that's the direction, but a great deal of it is Ezra Miller's performance. They just do a really good job of playing these two completely different versions of the same person. And the other thing about that too that's cool is you cannot see the sausage being made in terms of when they're together in the same frame on screen, which is a lot of this movie, you don't give a second thought to the fact that it's special effects. It looks like they were both there at the same time. There were actually two of them. You cannot tell that there's, special effects going on and editing magic and so forth, computer stuff. It just looks real. And that also lends itself to the uh, audience's ability to believe that they're two different people because you don't see the wires, and so you're able to concentrate on the performance and the characters and the way they're both emoting and behaving, and you really see that they're two terribly different people. And I think a lot of that credit goes to Ezra Miller, and as well as the other stuff. But they were in the driver's seat in terms of the, line delivery and the emoting. And I think they did a fantastic job of portraying the characters into different ways so that they're incredibly distinct. I thought that was great. Michael Keaton, of course, is fantastic as Bruce Wayne Batman. He doesn't look that much older, which I thought was cool. I thought that the young lady playing Supergirl was excellent, and I liked everything that she did in the movie. The action sequences are crazy cool, and it never feels like it drags, even though it's 2.5 hours long, which is good. One critique I do have, and I don't know if it's just me, I am kind of old and I don't have the best eyesight in the world, but at certain points, it seemed like the CGI was not 100%. Like in the beginning, when Batfleck is riding around on the bat cycle and his cape is billowing in the wind, it looks fake. It doesn't look real like it has in past films when we've seen that kind of mechanic done by special effect with various capes. It looked rubbery. It looked, well, though it's kind of does look rubbery. It would look rubbery if it were real anyway, but it looks fake rubbery a little bit to me. And even his face did. So I don't know how much bat stuff Ben Affleck actually did in the movie. Like it's clearly him when they're on the bridge and he's talking to Wonder Woman and so forth. But on the motorcycle, I wasn't sure that they even shot him on a motorcycle rig. It seemed all CGI. So I don't know if that's true, but that's how it seemed. And I thought that was a little unfortunate that it looked a tiny bit fake. And also during the hospital sequence when Barry is saving a bunch of babies that fall out of the maternity ward, the babies look terribly fake in a lot of the shots. And I was disappointed by that because, people have been talking about how CGI is bad now in modern movies for a while. And I never really noticed it. And I still don't see it when they point it out. I think those people have been spoiled on, the CGI that we have in this generation in the last 20 or 30 years. And they don't remember what special effects were like when I was a kid and, what bad special effects actually look like. I mean, today's bad CGI is heads and shoulders above the crappy green screen work and whatnot that we got in shows when I was a kid and in movies when I was a kid. So I never really understood why they called it bad CGI because it wasn't 100% perfect. But if someone were to say it about the stuff that I was just talking about, I would have to go, yeah, it looked a little fake. It looked a little bit 1999 special effect. So, yeah, but that's really the only criticisms I have. Again, I do have questions. Like, are we really in the DCU going to have George Clooney Batman? I mean, I'm not opposed. I'm just surprised that they did that, and I am taken aback by the idea that that might be where we're going. So, I mean, only time will tell at this point. Have we seen the last of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman? I thought we had with Shazam 2, but here she was in the Flash movie. Is she in Aquaman 2? I would be thrilled if that were the case. We'll have to see. Time will tell because that will truly be the last film in the DCEU, if I'm not mistaken. Another question is, what are Aquaman and Barry up to? What's that whole thing about? What's going on there? Is Aquaman maybe not quite Aquaman and Barry has to sort of rehab him because things changed a little bit after he set his father free from jail? We shall have to see. Another question I have relates to Supergirl. If that timeline is dead and gone, and she only existed in that time period that was, an alternate time period that Barry accidentally created, are we going to get a different actress for Supergirl going forward? And we know there is going to be a Supergirl project in the DCU at some point. They announced that, if I'm not mistaken. So is it going to be a different Supergirl or a different actress? I mean, because they could do a different Supergirl with the same actress, because Kara Zor-El could still be Kara Zor-El as we saw her, but just a different timeline without changing the actress. So that's a question I have. I'd hate to see them go with another actress now that they just introduced her. I thought she did a good job, and I like this version of the character so far. So we'll have to see what happens there. But that's really it. Those are really the only questions I have and the only comments I have. I mean, I think it's been said that Ezra Miller is going to go forward as the Flash, so we're going to see more of them. Everything else in terms of the casting is open to interpretation at this point. Even though they've showed George Clooney, I still can't believe they did that. But anyway, that is my early pre-release recap and review of The Flash. And I'm going to get out of here for now. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.